Hello, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Larry Rhodes.
And I'm Jen Bosco. Right here in East Tennessee, you can find free-thinking atheists and agnostics. This is a show for them and people curious about living a life free of supernatural beliefs. Today is February 4th, 2014, and this is a call-in show, and we invite your calls to the number shown below.
The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun meetup, often at a bar or restaurant. Tonight's meetup is at Barley's Taproom and Pizzeria in the Old City for happy hour after the show for food, drink, and conversation. To find us, look for the silver-jacketed copy of The God Delusion standing upright on the table.
The Rationalists of East Tennessee monthly activities on the first and third Sunday mornings are usually lectures with lively roundtable discussion. The second Sunday is book club. The fourth Sunday is the Reflections Gathering, which is a potluck afternoon gathering at a member's home.
Today we'll be talking about the Darwin Day and Darwin Week activities at UT and how they celebrate it. But first, in the news. After the show tonight goes till 6 o'clock, but at 7 o'clock there's a special on it's a streaming show. The popularizer of science, Bill Nye, the science guy of Saturday children's television fame, will face off against the creation evangelist Ken Ham, the formidable leader of the Young Earth's creationist ministry, Answers in Genesis. The sold-out event will take place in Ham's home turf at the Creation Museum in Kentucky. The agreed-upon debate topic is creation a viable model for origins in today's modern scientific era? No, we're getting off into opinion land. In my personal opinion, and I've said it many times on the show, religious leaders, when speaking on the subject of religion, are no better than witch doctors' opinion. They pretend to know things about God, the afterlife, souls, etc. that nobody can know. And they also claim to know what God wants us to do and what God is punishing for when he sends natural disasters our way. When Bill Nye gets up on stage with Ken Ham, Mr. Ham can then claim that real scientists are taking him seriously. As an example, another pseudoscience peddler, say that 3 times, Deepak Chopra recently said after a debate with neurobiologist Sam Harris and physicist Leonard Mlodinow, "This is an exciting time in the development of the understanding of consciousness and the deepest knowledge of physics. I'm delighted to be engaged in this discussion with such eminent minds." He used the stature of these eminent minds to elevate his own status. He is not engaged in the development of understanding of any of these things any more than you would be if an actual neurologist and physicist told you that your theories were a bunch of crap. Richard Dawkins said that he flatly refused to engage in this type of debate, saying, "It would look good on his resume, but not so good on mine." I'm pretty sure it would pretty much be the same with Bill Nye and Ken Ham. However, it's all good, and I'm sure it'll be entertaining if nothing else. So be sure to tune in and watch these guys slug it out. Tonight, 7 o'clock, streaming on debatelive.org and on MSNBC, certain stations. And back to the topic at hand, Darwin Day at UT. Jen Bosco, you're a representative of UT today. You're not really a member of a Rationalist or the Atheist Society, but you're here, you've consented to come on the show with us and talk a little bit about the activities. What would you like to tell us about?
So we have a lot of exciting things going on at UT next week. Darwin Day is from February 10th to the 12th, and we have a lot of things going on, a lot of speakers, a lot of exciting activities for students and hopefully the public to engage in. So I just wanted to come here and tell everybody about the sort of activities that we're going to be having.
Okay.
So for people who want to come down and discuss evolution, we're going to be having an information booth on pedestrian walkway. There will be student volunteers there for several hours every day so people can come by and sort of talk to us about any questions they might have. We also have walking puppets of Darwin and Wallace, which... Are
you going to have like hug and evolutionist booths or anything like that?
we have to keep the ladies off of Darwin and Wallace, so yeah, they're really popular, but you can't really miss them, so
Who is this here in the middle of the picture of Darwin Wallace there?
Oh, that's one of our grad students, Jennifer. She studies bats. But we have Darwin and Wallace. They're going to be at First Friday in downtown this weekend, and they're also going to be on campus next week. It's pretty hard to get volunteers because they're so heavy to carry around. So,
Sure. I'm sure most of our viewers know who Darwin is, but tell us a little bit about Wallace.
Wallace he was a British naturalist, but he also came up with a theory of evolution by natural selection independently of Darwin and around the same time. His findings, he actually wrote his findings and sent them to Darwin, and Darwin saw that, and this was basically 20 years after he had gone to the Galapagos, and he sort of panicked.
Yeah, well, he had sit on his own book for almost 20 years, being afraid of publishing it, I believe. And then here comes Wallace. He's about ready to do it himself. So that kind of builds a fire under him, makes him get off his rocking chair and get out there and get published.
That's exactly what happened. So Wallace sort of doesn't get all the credit when people talk about evolution. So this year we're celebrating Wallace and biogeography to sort of remedy Darwin or Wallace's disappearance from a lot of conversations. Right. So
that brings us to the point where when an idea, as time has come, the idea will come out. It doesn't depend on a particular person. Like if Darwin hadn't lived, this wouldn't have come out. There were a lot of people working on this, and the ideas were there. The book may have come out in a different form under a different name, but the knowledge was accumulating to such a point where people were beginning to realize that evolution and natural selection actually happened, and that's where life on Earth, not life itself, but species came from.
Yeah. And Wallace came up with his theory independently of Darwin, and it just gives support to all the theory of natural selection. But Wallace was actually put on Darwin acknowledged Wallace when he wrote The Origin of Species. So Wallace sort of gets a little bit of credit, but everybody kind of forgets about him. So this year we want to celebrate Wallace and his work. Yeah.
So you have a bigger than life-size puppet show, basically. About is there going to be any skits or anything? Any plays being put on that you know of?
We don't have any skits going on, but we're going to be showing movies in the Hodges Library. So we have a bunch of movies that will be going over different examples of natural selection, and human evolution is one of the movies, and I think there's a debate movie between creation and evolution that sort of talks about evolution and creation and sort of the arguments between those two. So there's going to be a lot of movies going on, and we also have talks. We're bringing in a lecturer from Harvard, Dr. Andrew Barry, and he's going to be talking about the history of Wallace and also giving a more informal talk to students, so students get to interact with and talk to him about Darwin and some of his work that he does at Harvard. And we also have Dr. Nick Matsky, who is a postdoc at the National Institute of Mathematical and Biological Synthesis, and he actually has a lot of experience with working sort of in the public creationist evolution debate. So he worked on the Kitzmiller versus Dover trial in Pennsylvania. He actually was working with he went through the textbook and sort of showed that they were substituting intelligent design for creationism and really helped get...
The book that they were using, Pandas and People, I think, is actually the same book that they were using for creationism in earlier cases and in school classes. And they proved in Kitzmiller versus Dover that it was the same book, same concepts. They just went through it with a word processing, word replace routine and changed the word creationism to intelligent design, hoping to bypass the laws as it stood. So this is still another illegal act on the part of the creationists to get that taught in school.
Yeah. So Nick actually had a lot to do with sort of bringing this to the forefront and helping get that sort of squared away. So he's going to be giving an informal lecture also to students sort of about the more public interaction with evolution. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize that the Dover trial was the latest monkey trial in American history. The first one was back in the 1925 in Tennessee, Dayton, just a little south of Knoxville. And then there were 2 or 3 other ones. I can't remember the one that got creationism thrown out of school.
I think there was one in Louisiana. There was 2 trials in Louisiana relatively recently.
It's a long and varied history. The first one, evolutionists lost, but we appealed it and won a later version, and we've been winning them ever since, much to the credit of America for doing that. Now, I noticed that you're talking about Wallace and Darwin. Nobody's mentioning Huxley in there at all. Do you know about Darwin's bulldog? He was a friend of Darwin, and he was one of the persons who was the most staunch defender of Darwin. You can imagine coming out with a book, in the late 1800s, or that said that man was not created by God. Basically, he was evolved from lower animals. You would have a lot of enemies. And Darwin was a shy, retiring type of person. He didn't have the kind of personality that it would take to defend that type of thing. But Huxley did, and he would jump in the fray and defend him on every corner to be able to get that work published, get it out, and defend it and on the public arena. So besides movies and booths on the street, what else and what other things that we're talking about?
There's going to be a teachers conference, so 2 of our professors in EEB, or Ecology and Evolutionary Biology, are going to be teaching some teachers who are coming in sort of how to teach evolution, answer some questions, because, there's a lot of avoidance of teaching it in classrooms. So we're trying to get teachers to better understand the concepts of evolution and be able to teach them in classes so they're not really afraid or something they don't understand. So we have a teacher's workshop, which will be really exciting.
Very good.
Yeah. So
we can invite most teachers who are biology teachers in the secondary education in Knoxville to come down and visit and participate.
Yeah. I'm not sure if there was a sign-up procedure for that, but
they're welcome.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Did the Center for Science Education get involved in any way in this activities that we're talking about?
No, they have their own separate Darwin Day, but UT is our organization. Darwin Day is largely student-run. So,
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
So graduate students have been putting this together and sort of organizing everything, but there are other Darwin Days around the country, but ours is one of the oldest, so.
All right. Well, we'd like to remind viewers that this is a call-in show. We're about 15 minutes into the show now. The number at the bottom of the screen is open. We only have one line, I'm afraid, but it's open. You're ready for your calls, and welcome. So, what else are we talking about going on?
At Darwin Day?
Well, do you get? And you've had a history of this before. You've done this 2 or 3 times now, I guess.
This is my second time doing it.
Okay.
Yeah, but the department has been doing it for.
Do you expect much activity from the other side, I guess, from the creationists? Do people normally come down and stand on the street corners and decry evolution and try to get mix things up?
I heard last year that there were people who came and wanted to talk to grad students about the other side, but the large argument that we make is that we're not experts in religion, so we can't comment on the validity of religious claims, so we are sticking to the science and what the science tells us. So sometimes that's where we sort of come to a impasse, and you sort of have to say, well, I'll go my way and you go yours, since we're clearly not going to come to a amicable agreement about this.
Right.
So.
But what about just the sheer presence of the creationists during Darwin Day? Has that been a problem in the past?
We've never had a problem in the past. It's not they're not the majority that are there. It's mostly students who are walking by asking questions, or people just walking in from the street or something like that and asking us questions. So that's the majority of the people that we get.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So movies, speeches, puppets. We were talking about, earlier you were showing me pictures of bird bills and butterflies. Do you have exhibits like that you're going to be sharing with the students, the general population?
We don't have exhibits necessarily, but there's going to be a lot of pictures sort of that show how evolution works and sort of different organisms that are related, that share common ancestry, but we don't really have exhibits specifically like these, which we would love to have, but.
And we were talking just before the show about the people who have a concept that they say that evolutionists say that humans descended from monkeys. That's not exactly true. Would you like to address that a little bit?
Yeah, and that's one of the most common arguments that I get from people who are trying to say that they don't believe in evolution because they don't believe that they descended from monkeys. And, well, you're right, you don't descend from monkeys. We share a common ancestor with monkeys somewhere in our evolutionary past.
But you could call it like a pre-monkey or something, a primate that existed before monkeys existed. But even before that, we came from a lemur-like animal, an amphibian, before that, a fish, and then before that, protozoa. There's a long line of lineage that we came from the earliest single-cell animals. We can trace our lineage all the way up to humans. And we didn't stop at monkeys forever, but it passed through a pre-monkey type of animal. Now, we do have a person on the phone. We're going to welcome that person. Welcome to Freethought Forum. Do you have a comment or question? First of all, I guess we should get your name. Hello, can you hear us? You are on the air.
Yes. My name's Pat.
Ask?
Pat.
Pat. Okay, welcome, Pat, to the show. Did you have a comment or question?
Yeah, and I don't know, this is sort of an ancillary question, but do you know how much evolution is actually taught in the local school districts in biology class? It's been a long time. I took biology in high school back in the 60s, and we were actually taught evolution. But many of the young people I've met here in the last few years, it's not really covered. And I was wondering if maybe Jennifer knew, or you knew what the actual text, what they were actually teaching in high schools here in East Tennessee.
I'm actually not, I don't have an actual number to give you, but students that I've taught generally have less experience with evolution than I would have expected from what I learned in high school and what I learned in college, but I haven't actually been to any high schools or biology classes.
In this area?
In this area, yeah, so I have no idea what's being taught in individual schools, but
Okay, well, let me make a comment on that then. I have been in contact with some of the people at the National Center for Science Education and read a lot on it. The answer is just about any school you go to is going to vary from school to school to school because some schools are going to have very religious science teachers who don't want to teach it at all. They'll teach the very bare minimum that the law will allow, and some of them will even teach the minimum and then say, I don't believe the stuff, God made us. But then you have right down the street, a science teacher who will teach it to try to get the information across like she's supposed to. So you get a wide variety of students getting into college. Some have absolutely no background in evolutionary biology, and some have a pretty good grounding of it. But I think that the latter is less available today than the former. A lot of people are really just, even if they want to teach evolution in high school, they shy away from it because of the legal implications if they have a student in the class whose parents will take exception to it. And that usually ends up in court.
Yeah, I believe that happened a couple of summers ago out in Farragut.
Yeah, wouldn't doubt it.
Well, anyway, I just had often wondered how little of it got taught, because it seems like a lot of people are more familiar with sort of anti-Darwinian critiques than they are with actual concept of evolution and change over time. But I appreciate you answering my question, and
Sure.
that was about all I had.
Okay, are you in the Knoxville area? Do you usually watch the show?
Yeah, I try to. It's a difficult time to see it, but
Well, I hope you come down.
we've met Larry, so I know
okay.
I know
About it and the organizations.
right.
Okay, well, real good. Thank you for your call.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Talking a little bit further about that, I myself am pretty varied background when it comes to high school biology. When I took high school biology the first year, I got a coach who didn't believe in evolution at all. I mean, he was like, he was a coach. He also taught first year biology, and I failed it under him. I didn't pass the course, so they made me take summer school. In summer school, I got a real scientist, a science teacher, taught me all about evolution. I made an A in that course. So just in my one self in my freshman year in high school, I was all over the board as far as biological evolution education. So it's strange out there, not likely to get any better. So be sure to watch Bill Nye tonight and Ken Ham and get a real feel for how wild it is. That's on at 7 o'clock. So what next? You were talking about Bill Nye is not he's a scientist, but he's not an evolutionary biologist,
Yeah.
which is going to be a problem tonight when he talks to Ken Ham about evolution. Obviously, Ken Ham is going to.
Yeah.
So, and we had a discussion a little earlier about whether or not these whole things are a good idea. Do you think that evolutionary biologists should get on the stage with creationists and have debates? That's a good question for you to call in. We'll discuss it with you when you do. Well, phone lines are open and the number's on the screen. Actually, phone lines aren't open. We have a phone call coming in right now. Welcome to the show. You're on the air. May we have your name or nickname?
Hello, this is Faithless Forest. I've been watching the show and so glad that you're covering Darwin Day activities here.
Okay. Cool.
Are you hearing me?
Yes, I am. Faithless
All right,
is one
great.
of our hosts. So thanks for taking the time to call into the show.
All right. Well, I wanted to share an experience I had with Darwin Day some years ago. Michael Schremer had come and he'd spoken, and then there was a question and answer period afterwards. And there was a man who was asking questions, and he was obviously trying to undermine evolution. And when the question time was finished, he was still eager to talk more. And so I talked with him a little bit afterwards. And he said something, he asked a question or made an assertion that just astounded me. He said that he would only believe evolution when he saw like a cat giving birth to a dog. And I said to him, but that's not what evolution says happens. And he seemed to be kind of shocked by that. So I guess I was wondering, especially if you're the young woman who's co-hosting today, do you have students that maybe have that poor an understanding of the idea of what evolution is? And then maybe you can also tell viewers about what the expectation of evolution is.
Well, I've never had a student actually say that. That's sort of a
But we are talking college students here, so generally
Yeah.
they have a little better understanding of it.
a cat giving birth to a dog, aside from being a physical impossibility, is really that's not evolution at all. So, I mean, it's not really a great starting point to talk about evolution, but I feel
think that it may kind of go like this: that they think that that evolution theory claims that humans have a common ancestor with, chimps, and more distantly with gorillas and so on. That they think that there was some special moment when, let's call it a chimp, gave birth to a human. And in other words, they're under a mistaken impression of what the claims of evolution are. See what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that that's sort of it could be a misunderstanding, but evolution, I should start by saying the 4 sort of requirements for evolution, or for natural selection even. Evolution is just change over time. So somewhere in our distant past, our common ancestor with chimpanzees and monkeys and things like that, say maybe they got a population of this common ancestor got divided into 2 different populations. So
by natural division, like an earthquake or
or
river changing course,
something like that. And these 2 populations are no longer interbreeding with each other. So in our DNA, you have changes, and say one population is experiencing some kind of selection pressure that the other is not. So you have gradual change of these populations over time. And then eventually, after millions and millions of years, which is the time scale that evolution acts on, eventually you have 2 completely different species
that can no longer interbreed.
Yeah, that can no longer interbreed, that are genetically distinct.
And
but
they're on different biological paths at that point, or evolutionary paths.
Yeah, and in order for natural selection to happen, you need to have change in the DNA, and this change has to be heritable, and there has to be variation in the population. So say something like eye color, there's variation in the human population for eye color.
Mutation.
Yeah, and this a trait has to have some sort of
benefit?
Effect on the population. So say people with brown eyes are die from something, and you have people with blue eyes who are surviving better and producing more offspring. So eventually you have a lot more people with blue eyes than you do with brown eyes. So this is evolution, this is natural selection. You can also have evolution without natural selection, just by random change over time. So evolution itself is just change over time. It doesn't have to be extremely punctuated, like you have events where a monkey gives birth to a human. It's very gradual, and it takes place over millions and millions of years. So that's one of the most important things to remember, is that.
Getting back to the dog and cat thing, you say that this is misunderstood. It may not be. It may be a straw man argument. It may be that the person who he heard it from was being disingenuous. Maybe he's just trying to put evolution down and making up a crazy case that doesn't fly, so that he can then attack that straw man.
I'm pretty sure that the guy I was talking to, it wasn't a straw man.
Yeah, but I'm not talking about him. I'm talking about where he heard it from. Yeah. It may very well be you have a preacher up there somewhere who's putting out this kind of disinformation. And, of course, the people in the pews are eating it up.
All righty. Well, hey, thank you for addressing that subject. I'm going to clear the line. I hope you get some more callers, and a great Darwin week will occur. Bye now.
Thanks
you. Thanks for calling for us. And it's halfway through the show, so let's take a look at the mid-program break. 1 second. In case you're just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is jointly funded by them and by individual contributions.
Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Community Access Television. You can also see it streaming online outside the Knoxville area. Just go to ctvknox.org. This is a call-in show, and we are live today, February 4th, 2014. And viewers can call in now to the number on the screen.
And Sam, would you mind running the information videos on Ask and RET?
If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun. Do you find stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org.
And we're back. Today we have Jen Bosco with us today, and she's a student at UT, and we're going to be talking about the Darwin Day activities coming up next week, starting on the 10th and going through the 14th.
To the 12th.
To the 12th.
Yeah, which is Darwin's birthday.
Oh, okay. Yeah, what's funny is some of our viewers may not know that Abraham Lincoln and Darwin were born on the very same day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, same day, same year, so they share the birthday.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going to be showing some movies. Do you remember the titles of any of those that are going to be on the events?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember exact titles, but there is a schedule of events on the Darwin Day website that people can go to and look up.
Okay, and that
it's,
is?
www.darwindaytn.org. And we actually are going to be posting pictures. We've had a contest, a little art contest for students to sort of submit a common ancestor drawing. So little kids sort of can critically think about the common ancestor of certain animals. So we're looking forward to seeing what sort of responses
That would be
we got from
interesting,
that.
for sure.
Yeah.
What if they put down something like a spider?
Well, we gave them three
Examples?
three animals that they should use, but I mean,
Okay, well, it wouldn't be a spider anyway. That's a whole different branch. We have another caller. Welcome to Freethought Forum. May we have a name or a nickname?
JT.
You're on the air.
How are you doing today?
Doing good, and you?
Pretty good.
Your name, please?
JT.
JT. And you have a comment or question?
Yes, I do have a question. I was taught somewhat evolution in high school, and I don't really believe in it myself. What I wanted to ask you, I know the basics of it, what they teach, the microscopic life form. Tell me if I'm wrong here. You take a microscopic life form, and over time it evolves and evolves and evolves, and then we come to basically human species.
Can you speak up a little bit? I'm having a hard time making out your words.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
Okay, say you take a microscopic life form, and after so long a period of time, it evolves and evolves, and over so many million or billion years, it evolves into a mammal, and then it evolves into a human, and such. Am I right? Is that the theory of evolution?
yeah, that's the basic idea of it.
Well, let me ask you this: if your heart stops beating, what will happen to you?
You die.
Okay, so in the process...
So we're not talking about evolution anymore, is that correct?
Well, no, I'm just asking a question. If your heart stopped beating, or if your heart was not beating, you would not be alive, right?
That makes sense, although it has nothing to do with evolution. We were talking about evolution.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is, in the theory of evolution, while man is supposedly evolving from some other life form, or however far back you go in your chain of evolution to microscopic or whatever.
Uh-huh.
What was this life form doing while it was waiting on its heart to be evolved? You know what I'm saying?
They had other means of moving blood around their body. And even before the evolution of, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but there are other means of moving blood. But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, bacteria, which are pretty
Basic, microscopic.
simplistic organism, they actually move particles or food and water across their cell wall or cell membrane, and it doesn't require a heart at all. But if you look at all the different organisms that you have on Earth, you see a variety of circulatory systems, and humans have a closed circulatory system, but like even insects have a different type of circulatory system where part of the circulatory system is open and part of it's closed. So the circulatory system has evolved in multiple organisms over time. So different organisms have different circulatory systems that work for them. So things like beetles have their lungs or their breathing or respiratory structures connect right to their hemolymph, which is sort of like our blood, and the oxygen goes right into their blood, which is actually a way more efficient way of getting oxygen to the blood and muscles than the way we do it. So there's a lot of different circulatory and respiratory systems that work fine for other organisms that don't necessarily have to be what humans think of as the heart. So it's not necessarily...
Well, not only that, but you yourself started off as a combination of two cells that started off together, and those cells didn't have a heart. Now, you can say that your mother had a heart that was pumping blood to you, but I mean, even before you developed your own heart, there were other ways of moving nutrients around inside your body. Other animals have other means for doing it, and simple cells have simple means. You don't have to have a complicated multiple valve machine to do it. Any other questions that you have? And did we answer your question?
Yeah, you answered to the best of your ability, and I can't disprove you, and you really can't disprove me. I believe.
Does it not make sense then?
No.
It doesn't.
Well, for one thing, why did we stop evolving? Say we came from monkeys.
We haven't stopped evolving.
Well, why do monkeys not turn to people now?
Have you been listening to us? Or have you been watching the show so far?
Well, I've heard this mess my whole life, and it doesn't make any sense.
Well, you've been hearing it as a straw man argument. One type of species does not give birth to a different type of species. They may give birth to an animal that's tiny, slightly buried over the parent, as in such cases a mutation or some kind of genetic variation. But it takes hundreds of thousands of generations to come up with a new species. You don't have a dog giving birth to a cat. You don't have a monkey giving birth to a human. That's not what evolution says, and if people are telling you that, they're giving you disinformation.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying if a monkey, say we came from monkeys, if we evolved over hundreds of years or millions of years, whatever, I mean, I have no idea. Anyways, if we evolved from monkeys, why are monkeys not still evolving into people? Why is the process stopped? Why are monkeys still monkeys? I mean, to me, that's just common sense. I'm just a hillbilly. I don't have college education, and I just don't get it. To me, it makes more sense of a creator than it does of all this other mess of evolution. Now, everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not throwing off on y'all. I just wanted to see what you had to say about the heart theory, and I'm a firm believer in God and in Jesus Christ, and but I respect your opinion. I hope y'all have a good day.
Okay, well, thanks for the call.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to address the last thing he said before he hung up?
Well, I mean, the argument that people evolved from monkeys is one of the most common misconceptions that at least I come into contact with. And this is one of the things I stress when I teach my classes, is that people did not evolve from monkeys. And that's the one thing I always say, if you're going to take away anything from this class, that's the one thing you should take away.
We evolved through many different species.
We share a common ancestor with monkeys and other primates, which this common ancestor is no longer on Earth. So I think that's where people get confused.
Well, one of the comments he said was that if we evolved from monkeys and we have monkeys here on Earth now, why aren't they still evolving into humans?
I think that's sort of a misunderstood concept, that monkeys are still evolving, but...
And so are we.
Yeah, and so are we, but
And so is everything else.
And our common ancestor happened to evolve into us, into monkeys, but just because that happened doesn't mean that monkeys should be evolving into humans. There's no end point.
Well, not only that, but we were talking a little bit earlier about how environmental pressures form the organism that evolves in that environment. Mm-hmm. The environment that humans evolved in doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it's not the same environment for the monkeys or for the apes as it was at that time. We evolved in savannas in Africa, in Rift Valley, but I doubt that there are monkeys right there now that are feeling the same evolutionary pressures that we did. And they don't have the original stock that we evolved from is not present there.
Yeah.
Any comments
before
we take this call?
And evolution's not forward-looking. There's no future like monkeys should evolve into humans because humans are so much better, or something like that. Natural selection is what is happening right now, shapes who survives and reproduces.
If the environment doesn't change that drastically that they're living in, then there's not going to be that kind of change, or there's not going to be huge environmental pressure to go in any particular direction. Welcome to the show. You're on the air. May we have a name or a nickname, please?
I'm Chuck.
Chuck?
I'd like to talk a little bit about teachers.
Sure, great. Go for it.
Seems to me that if teaching of evolution is called for in the curriculum, and a teacher refuses to do that, it ought to show up in his teacher evaluation, and if it continues to be cause for dismissal. Not only dismissal, but if in the state of Tennessee teachers have teaching certificates, I say it should be cause for the revocation of that teaching certificate. I think this has gone on long enough, and it would be a fitting tribute to Darwin if there were a movement that said, let's get the teachers to do what they're supposed to do. That's really all I wanted to say.
Hear, hear. We're with you, I believe. Thanks for your call,
much.
Chuck. But the problem is that the problem doesn't end with the teachers. And it goes through principals, through school boards, and right on up the political ladder. There are creationists involved in all levels of the educational system, and it's a problem that we've got to wrestle with. And the only venue that we have to wrestle with this now is legal. It's very expensive, very time-consuming, and it's hard to reach conclusions. But we're working on it. A lot of good people in the trench there with you, and I'm sure they'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, and if people feel very strongly about it, it's something that you should write to your congressperson about and really try and get out there. Because,
let your school board know, too.
Yeah, because change doesn't happen by just talking about it. People actually have to take action and write letters and talk to people.
And serve. There's no better way of putting your mind to the school board than putting your mind on the school board. We would love to have the kind of commitment from the secular community for this type of thing as the religious community has been showing all along. So sign up, run for office. Especially if you're in this economy, you're out of a job. You get health benefits, you get weekly paycheck. But really, run for school board, run for political office, make your secular views known, and we can make a change. Another phone call. Okay. Welcome to Freethought Forum. You're on the air now. May we have a name or a nickname?
This is Pauline.
I'm sorry, the system isn't loud enough right now. Can you speak up a little bit?
This is Pauline.
Pauline.
And I turned in a few minutes late. And
okay.
I looked on the internet on Darwin Day activities. And I saw where there's a workshop for teachers. Are there activities for the normal population as well?
There are activities like movies. We're showing movies that sort of go along with Darwin Day, and there was a contest for sort of elementary and middle school kids and high school and college kids to sort of draw either Darwin, a cover for On the Origin of Species, or sort of a common ancestor of 3 different animals that we gave them. But those were sort of kids' activities, but there's also talks that we have that the general public can attend, and we strongly encourage the general public to attend these talks because you might get to meet the speakers and hear some talks that you wouldn't really get to hear otherwise. So
okay.
Yeah.
I just went back on and I see where some of that is. I had just found a teacher's workshop was off. Thank you so much.
They're going to have meet the public booths on right on the street too, so that'll be a good way to be involved.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for calling. That was Pauline. I forgot to ask her if she's local. So, movie titles, speakers. Do you remember any particular speakers that are going to be available to the public, or talking to the public?
we have Andrew Barry, or Dr. Andrew Barry from Harvard, and we also have Dr. Nick Matsky, who's a postdoc at UT, specifically at NIMBUS, or National Institute of Mathematical and Biological Synthesis. So those are 2 speakers that are being heavily advertised, but the graduate students and possibly some faculty will be at the information booth to be available to talk to the public. And we have 2 UT faculty who are teaching the teacher's workshop, but I actually have some of the names of some of the videos here.
Cool.
Now that I actually have the videos, but we have National Geographic, The Human Family Tree, The Fall, Charles Darwin and the Tree of Life, Gattaca, and I think there was a video, Creation is another video. So we have a bunch of videos. They're going to be in Hodges Library, which is on campus, so people are free to attend any or all of those movies.
Well, very good. And also, speaking of movies and documentaries, I highly recommend people go online and look for Dover, the trial. It was Intelligent Design on Trial, the Dover trial. There's a 2-hour documentary on that that's very interesting. It's good viewing and very informative. Welcome to Freethought Forum. You're on the air. May we have a name or a nickname, please?
Yeah, you can just call me Bob. Am I coming through okay?
Yes, you're coming through fine, Bob. Thank you for calling. Did you have a comment or question?
Well, I'd like to give a compliment to the people like, is it Jan?
Jen.
Jen. Okay. That your efforts are not going unnoticed. There's a movie called Expelled, and in it there's several of the prominent creationists of today, and their theories have been pushed so far back that they actually agree with evolution. Now, anybody that's a creationist, and they was wanting to look to the creation experts of the day, they would find that these folks actually agree with evolution, and several of them are in the movie Expelled, and it's worth taking a look at, I guess, just for to hear them. It is the people that talk about the monkeys and everything that are the ones that are just out to lunch. And I don't know if just a good old boy is that good of an excuse anymore for being ignorant. But the debate that you're talking about tonight with Ken Ham, see, now Ken Ham is not even mainstream creationism. He is a fruitcake. The entire Creation Museum is nuts. And these people have been soundly criticized by mainstream creationists. Natural selection is a fact, and as a matter of fact, I'd like to throw in another Darwin here that deserves recognition along with Wallace, and that was Erasmus Darwin, who was Charles Darwin's grandfather, and he believed in evolution, or adhered to the idea of evolution. People saw all of the evidence for it. It was just Darwin describing these populations that had been isolated from each other, and he described the action of selective breeding. So maybe that would help.
Yeah, animal husbandry had been around for centuries before Darwin came along.
Exactly. So what all Darwin did, all he did really was said, here's the mechanism that
a natural mechanism.
Right, a natural mechanism. And so I was wanting to give a compliment, because apparently even the creationists are coming to your side. The only real disagreement they have with evolution right now is that spark of life and where that came from. So if someone's a staunch religion person, they really don't have that much of an excuse to cling to this idea, except that it provides some sort of a threat to them. And I believe that any science that provides a threat, they're going to reject wholly. But please keep in mind, this Kim Ham is a Looney Tunes guy.
A Looney Tune guy who will be able to say that on his resume that he is debating with real scientists and make him look better.
Well, actually, I think, what's the science guy? His degree is mechanical engineering. So, that's a science base, but it's certainly not biology.
Yeah.
And this Ken Ham, if he wants to throw stones at anybody, well, he's got an honorary degree from Liberty University.
Oh, boy.
So he's not very well educated either. Anyway, good work. So the work that you're doing is having an effect.
I certainly hope so.
All right. Thank you very much for letting me talk. I'll get off and let somebody else on.
Thank you.
Bob. Bye-bye.
Let me go back to our caller, earlier one, JT. I think that's symptomatic of the creationist type of mindset, misunderstanding evolution, thinking that dogs may come from cats or people from monkeys, like in one generation. What JT represents, though, is a pure laziness. You've got the world at your fingertips. You've got the education of all of the universities online. You can go in and log into pretty much any biological evolution department in the world, and specific websites that are set up to explain just this stuff. But has he done it? No. What does he do? He calls in and asks a couple of atheists. Well, one atheist, I guess, about it. And he just throws out a question. It's more silly than anything else. What happens when your heart stops? Which is not even in the purview of evolution. Take a minute, go online, do some research, find out what evolution actually is, and form a coherent question. Did you have a comment before we go to our next caller?
Well, one of the things I think, because a lot of universities are making websites where you can actually take whole courses for free. So MIT is one of the universities that does this, and they have a bunch of different classes that you can go online and basically take the whole class for free, which if you can't afford to take a class or you're really interested in something, it's a really great way to educate yourself And there's a ton of websites out there that even go over evolution.
Yeah.
So.
And even if you just got a few minutes a day, go to YouTube and type in evolution and watch a few videos. Shoot. Anyway, this is Freethought Forum. You're on the air now. May we have a name or a nickname?
Yeah, this is Ralph.
Ralph.
Ralph? Okay, Ralph, that's taking our sound equipment just a second to catch up with you.
Yeah.
There it is. That's come in now. Did you have a comment or a question?
Yeah, I did, especially with respect to the last caller. You know, evolution and Christianity are entirely incompatible. I mean, if you believe in evolution, you believe that human beings evolved gradually over millions of years, hundreds of thousands of years, to get to Homo sapiens. There is no first man. There is no Adam. If there is no Adam, there is no original sin. If there's no original sin, there is no fall from grace. And if there's no original sin and fall from grace, then there is no necessity for a redeemer to make a blood sacrifice for that, as the Christians believe Jesus was required to do. And if Jesus is not required to do that, and there is no necessity for a redeemer, then the whole Christian philosophy is mythology. It doesn't have anything to do with reality.
Yeah, and not only that, but I mean, even aside the question of whether God is real or not, I would just be happy if somebody could show me that souls are real. I mean, this whole thing is built about where your soul goes after you die. But if you don't have a soul, then there's nothing to go anywhere. I mean, you just go into the ground. No need for heaven, hell. There's no need to worry about sin, any of that stuff. So,
right,
I mean, there's
sure.
lots of
But my whole point is that it's totally incompatible to believe in evolution and to be a Christian. They just are incoherent positions to take.
Anything to say to that?
Well, I would disagree with that on the basis that science is based on something we can test, and anything having to do with God is untestable. So that's one of the things science cannot comment on. And
no, I'm sorry, I disagree with you on that completely. I mean, people often bring this question up, but there are things that science can comment on about religion and about the supernatural. But that has nothing to do with what I just said. I just said that it's an incoherent position to believe in evolution where human beings are created gradually, and creationism where you have one man who is the first man and who was responsible for original sin, and therefore you need a blood sacrifice for a redeemer. To me, science, evolutionary science and Christianity are completely incompatible.
I'm with you, Ralph. But we've got to close our show.
Yeah, okay.
We're down to the last minute. Any comment before we do?
Sorry, at the last minute, but you had so many callers, the phone was busy all the time.
Well, thanks for calling, Ralph.
Right.
Anything before we go?
yeah, well, since we're not experts on religion, I think that's one of the most important things that people forget is that we cannot comment on religion, and that science absolutely...
You can comment on evolution, and then they can take that and worry about what their religion says about it.
And God means different things to different people, so we just can't test it. It's something that we choose not to comment on. We stick to the things that we can test and replicate, and that's what evolution...
Okay. Well, this has been Freethought Forum. I'm glad you joined us for the show. We're here every Tuesday at 5 o'clock. Please come back next time and join us. I'd like to thank Jonas, Sam, and Forrest. Remember, examine your beliefs.